So glad you guys are tuning back into Everyone Talks to Liz. I want to start with a little bit of news. The Trump administration announced it would be halting new DACA, deferred action on childhood arrivals applications, and limiting protections for current Dreamers to 1 year as it considers canceling the Obama-era program. But it comes after the administration was recently forced to retract its announced rule that all international students have to attend in-person classes during the coronavirus pandemic in order to remain in the United States. Immigration is still an issue that America continues to grapple with, but there is no denying that when you look at it from an inspirational and aspirational aspect of it, hundreds of Fortune 500 companies were literally put on the map by immigrants. They were founded here by immigrants. They were grown here by immigrants, and they've created millions of jobs. Many people come to the U.S. in hopes for a better future and access to greater opportunity, but it's a two-way street. The U.S. has actually really benefited from immigration. This week's podcast guest came to the United States from Syria back in 2013, and now he is creating his own map so that he can help other Syrian refugees and Syrian students come here and create a new and better world. Why should this matter to people? Well, you got to hear from Syrian Youth Empowerment Initiative co-founder George Batah. Thanks so much for coming on to Everyone Talks to Liz, George. Good to have you.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me.
The reason that you scale our very high bar for Everyone Talks to Liz is because your story is one of complete inspiration and, as I said, aspiration. You're somebody who came here as a foreign transfer student, as we said, in 2013. But let me just get to the news. What do you make of it?
Honestly, it was devastating for me when we first heard about this rule for many, many reasons. But most importantly, because as someone who came to this country, I love this country. I respect this country and its values, and to see it shutting down in the face of people who want to contribute to it and to the world that we live in is devastating on a very personal level. But also, what was very concerning about this specific ICE announcement that wanted to push back against the students who are in the United States is that it really missed a lot of the realities that these students are living in. So aside from the health considerations and the fact that if you want to send back millions of students, that will create a health issues with during a pandemic that we live in. But also in some countries like Syria, it would have been a matter of life or death, because and this is where it was very there was a lot of oversight in this policy, in thinking through this policy, because, for example, for students from Syria, if they leave the US and go back to their countries, not only if they ever have to come back, they'll have to reapply for a visa during a travel ban that is very, very difficult to penetrate, but also they will lose their student status, meaning that back home they will be taken to the military, or they will be deployed in the war that is happening. And that would have been a matter of life or death. So that makes it even more serious. It was not just a matter of convenience for some of the students to stay here, or that why they wanted to stay here during these crazy times.
Well, for people who don't even have a dog in the fight when it comes to immigration, it seemed particularly spiteful and a little misguided to say to international students who are here, they have their visas, they have a purpose. Oh, well, unless you can be inside the classroom versus in your dorm room taking your classes online, because that's exactly what Harvard is doing for most of its students, requiring them to be online, then you've got to get out of Dodge. You've got to get out of this country. The good news is the administration has retracted that. It was never going to work anyway. It's a little nutty, but let's look forward here by looking back. Tell us about growing up in Syria and why you were so focused on getting here to America.
Yeah, I had a great childhood in Syria, and but I always loved the U.S. I remember I used to go to the American Embassy events and read some of the books of the philosophers that laid the groundwork for the American system, and I've always had the affinity to the country and its values and its society. So it has always been sort of a dream. The American dream, like anyone else, is to come here and prove yourself and work hard and contribute and hopefully transfer some of these values to my own country. And it never happened. I tried when I was 18. I applied for a scholarship. I sat on the SAT and the TOEFL, and I just couldn't get any admission. Fast forward to 2013. It was 2 years in the Syrian war, and I was one of the lucky students who got a transfer scholarship to Illinois Institute of Technology as part of the work of an organization called JSOR Organization. And I got here, and I was able to continue my education here and graduate from the school.
But instead of just saying, okay, I'm here, I'm not worrying about anybody I left back home, you turned around and you remembered the process of applying and taking the SAT. And, you know, when English is your second language, I can only imagine the challenges you had to go through. And you looked at that and you said, hold on, I want to help other people who are left behind do this. Tell me, what was the hardest part about just getting here and how you are making that change for other people so that it is a smoother road?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there were a lot of challenges in order to make it happen in the first place. So the visa has always been extremely difficult to get a visa if you're from Syria, regardless of the administration. Mm-hmm. My English was pretty much broken by the time that I came to this country. It was my third language, not even my second. I remember when I applied on my own, when I saved some money to take the SAT and TOEFL. First, it was a lot of money for me, for a kid in Syria, let alone that my parents didn't know how to support this or didn't know what to make out of it. So I was on my own, and I wrote my essay, not understanding the context, not understanding what the American universities are looking for, and I failed miserably when I was 17, and I tried to apply alone. But when I got here, I think this is a problem and a challenge that all immigrants face, but especially immigrants from conflict countries, where there's this huge sense of guilt, because I know that I'm not smarter than many people in Syria or many other students in Syria. I know that I'm not more intellectual. I know that I'm not more brilliant, yet I was lucky that I knew about the opportunity, applied to it, and got it, and made my way here. So that has always been in my mind, and the fact that Syria, it was getting worse day by day, I just felt that I had to do something, and I couldn't just sit and wait for things to get better. And also I felt that a lot of universities here really wanted to help, but then there's this huge gap where language barriers, knowledge barriers. So we felt that if we flip the narrative, instead of fundraising millions of dollars to bring few students, why don't we prep the students to get full scholarships that already exist and just polish them and polish their applications and let them communicate with the universities. And that was the premise of the idea. And we started, honestly, we were sitting in a living room, 4 of us, and we started brainstorming and coming up with the model that we want to build. And our goal was just to get one student in school. Yet in the first year that we launched the program, we built the curriculum and recruited the mentors, and after 1 year worth of work, 9 of the 19 students that we worked with ended up getting around $5 million in scholarship from Harvard and MIT and Stanford and Columbia and Georgetown.
Wow.
It was wild, and now the students will be graduating next year, so we're pretty excited also to see what they will be doing then. And once we knew that we had a solid model that we can expand, and that's what we have been doing since we launched. So now we're not only helping undergraduate students who are interested in undergraduate, so we launched to a graduate program helping a lot of Syrian students who got their undergrad degree in Syria or somewhere else to get their masters, but also we launched to Iraqi students, because our goal is to support as many students from conflict countries as possible. And we launched a pilot program with the Iraqi. We recruited Iraqi mentors and we recruited Iraqi students, and now we're working with them, and hopefully by this time next year we'll have some success stories from that pilot program.
Well, give me a success story. Give me the name and the experience of a student whom you found in Syria and is now, as you say, about to graduate. What was their story?
Oh my God, there's so many. It's really hard to pick. But one of the students was my first mentee from the first year, and I remember the story vividly because he missed the deadline that we set first, and then he managed to get my phone number and he called me. I remember I was doing laundry in Chicago, and he called me and he was like, "You have to let me in the program. It is my dream. I've been working so hard. And he started sending me things that he'd done, works that he's done, PDFs that he created, research that he has done. And he was in Aleppo in 2016, the worst time to be in Aleppo. No electricity, no water, bombing every single day. And he was brilliant. I can't just not give him that opportunity. So we extended him the offer to be part of the program the first year. And I worked personally with him throughout the year. And he ended up getting 8 scholarships, and basically admission officers were fighting over him. And he ended up going to Harvard. He was torn between Harvard and Stanford. By the way, fun fact, his top choice was Johns Hopkins, but it was the only university that turned him down. So, it is what it is. But it has always, like, if he got Johns Hopkins, he would have gone there without even thinking. But he was so brilliant that his essays that he used to write, I used to review. He was drawing parallel from Nietzsche's work about his life in Aleppo and I honestly thought that I cannot write in this eloquency for someone whose English is not first language, who really didn't learn it in school. I cannot come up with the words in the way that he did. But he basically equated the Ubermensch with every man who lives in Aleppo, of the Superman, any man who lives in Aleppo and survive, any man and woman, because it was really not normal life in Syria for so long, and it's still not, but during that time specifically. So that was the premise of his essay. And the beautiful thing about his story is that from day one, he really wanted to help. He really wanted to pay it forward. He has connected us with people from Harvard to talk more about the admission process. Mm-hmm. He helped us fundraise. He helped us with anything that we ever needed from him as a student, but also he excelled at school. He's doing double major in medicine, in biology, and in philosophy, and in computer science, and a minor in philosophy.
So he's an underachiever. Just kidding. Obviously not.
Guy. If he's underachiever, I don't know what I would define myself.
This is Everyone Talks to Liz, and we'll be right back. What about you? You came to this country as a student. What was your major? Do you have a day job? I mean, this is using up so much of your time. Clearly, you're so incredibly passionate about it.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. After graduation, I studied business and specialized in finance in my undergraduate studies, and I worked for 1.5 years in a private equity fund of funds in Chicago. But then I worked in consulting at Deloitte Consulting for around 4 years. I just left a couple of weeks ago because I'm starting a master's program called the Schwarzman program, which is starting in a few weeks. But I care so deeply about Syrian Youth Empowerment and the work that we're doing that, yes, I have 2 jobs. They both are 2 full-time. They both eat up my sleeping time and all my disposable time. But I care so deeply about it that I I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to do it this way, and to be able to be part of like both institutions, or SYE and Deloitte Consulting. And I felt I brought a lot of the learnings that I learned at Deloitte, at the clients that I worked with, to SYE, to make it leaner, to make it more efficient, to make it more effective, and to build a culture that I and everyone who's part of the organization can be proud of.
George, tell me what you want listeners to know and to understand about the refugees whom you are bringing here to get an education. This is your chance to really explain to people what's at the heart of the matter.
Yeah. As humans, I believe every person deserves a chance to get good education. Every person deserves a chance to live to their full potentials. And this is part of why I love America. And this is part why I have so much affinity to the American values. But in refugee cases, you just have to imagine that you have people who lost everything. I lost my phone last week, a couple weeks ago, which unfortunately happens quite a bit. And I was for an hour, I was devastated because it has my WhatsApp, it has all my messages, it has all my pictures. And then it just hit me like, how must it feel for someone who lost everything, their childhood memories, their home, their parents, their siblings. And while not all our students are refugees, but every single Syrian person lost so much during this war. And so they're coming from a place of very vulnerable place to start with. And the other side of the story is that those people who are working so hard to get that admission and to get that scholarship, they really love America. They really appreciate the opportunities that they're getting. They're really grateful for the generosity of America and the American society and the American institutions that are taking them in and giving them the opportunities that they're being given. So in the news, we see usually the bad stories that happens every now and then, and those get all the highlights. But if I have to leave you with one fact, is that the vast majority of refugees are good, law-abiding citizens who just want to help, and they just want to contribute and build a better life for them and their families, and they're just trying to live the American dream without taking anything from anyone, but the opposite, contributing to their new homes and their new societies.
George, I confidently say this country is lucky to have you. And I'm honored to know you. And I hope our listeners take from this exactly what you've said, which is the benefit of this, but also your success, what you were up against, and your generosity. Instead of just looking ahead and saying, now, how do I get the American dream and make a ton of money? You're actually reaching back to the very people whom you left to say, come along. Thank you so much, George. We wish you and the Syrian Youth Empowerment Initiative the best of luck. George Batah.
Thank you very much, Liz. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the fact that we have podcasts and platforms like yours that are highlighting stories like this, that are making it easier for people to understand the realities that we live in and the real reasons behind what is going on, and kind of giving them all they need to be compassionate to things that they don't know. And this is important, and I appreciate you and your podcast for this. And thank you for having me.
And thank you for making me feel like I've done nothing with my life. Thank you very much.
I would push back against that, but
thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Liz.
Good to have you, and so glad you're all tuning in. And remember, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, it's the Claman Countdown, and we really hope that you're watching as well as listening, because we are kicking some serious tail on that show on the Fox Business Network. It's the Claman Countdown. Great to have you all, and hope you join me for the next Everyone Talks to Liz. Bye. For more podcasts like this, go to foxnewspodcasts.com.